Welcome to the show. I'm Andy Hagans, and today we're talking about a really exciting private equity play. To be honest, this is right up my alley. It ticks all of the boxes for me. I don't have any skin in the game in this deal. I'm not an investor, but I'm just really excited about the potential. I find it very intriguing. Here today is Ronny Shmoel, CEO at Circuit City. Ronny, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me today, Andy. Looking forward.
So Circuit City is a cool company with a pretty long history. I was doing some research before the interview. It was founded in 1949, according to my research. I was surprised by that. I didn't know that, so it's a little older than I thought. But I'm guessing a lot of our audience, a lot of our listeners, will be familiar with the company in the 2000s, right? With the dot-com boom and a lot, electronics retailing at that time period. And then when the company filed for bankruptcy in 2008. So, Ronny, do you mind giving us just a brief overview, a history of Circuit City before you even got involved, just to sort of set the context?
Absolutely. I just wanted to add this for the context. So I've been in the consumer electronic industry for over 22 years. So I saw the height of Circuit City being in the industry and saw when they went bankrupt, unfortunately. And what happened with Circuit City, they became the number one consumer electronic destination in the country, in North America, actually. They had 700 stores roughly in America, and they had 650 stores in Canada. Over time, as big as they got, they also had internal management issues. They also looked at the market a little differently at the time when they brought in CEOs, even from Best Buy, previous executives from Best Buy trying to follow some of Best Buy's strategies that they were putting out there in the market. They actually, one of their biggest things that they did that set the tone for the demise was they got rid of probably one of their biggest attributes, that was sales guided consultative experts in store. The Circuit City just went to a self-service model, which really upset a lot of the customers, and they started losing customers, and it went into a spiral effect thereafter. So I got to watch that and see how such a big company that could have been alive in its prior form for another 100 years. The previous owner told me, he goes, his name is Alan Sam Wurtzel. So it was Alan Wurtzel, wrote a book. And in his book, and after I spoke to him briefly, he said, I built this company with my father to last forever. And that's what happens with mismanagement, unfortunately. But it also gave me an opportunity for my group to acquire the brand when it was available.
So Circuit City went bankrupt in 2008. I mean, I take your point. They made some strategic missteps, and I think it must be said, physical retailing, it's tough, right? It's not easy to be a physical retailer of any kind, and consumer electronics, very competitive landscape. So they went bankrupt. What happened to the Circuit City assets, the brand name, the company, let's say in 2009, post bankruptcy? Was it dormant? Were there any stores that did it continue to run post bankruptcy at all, or did it just totally shut down?
There was a bankruptcy court order from some of Circuit City's top creditors, and the judge ruled if they couldn't find a buyer within a specific amount of time. The way the bankruptcy system works in court with retailers and companies, they give them an allotted time to find a buyer, and they really couldn't find a buyer to take home of the company, just like a Bed Bath & Beyond. So what happened was there was a very large public company called Systemax. Systemax at the time owned other assets like Circuit City. So they were very familiar being in the consumer electronic and e-commerce industry. They also owned at the time CompUSA, Tiger Direct. So it was a conglomerate of an array of really top brands in this category. So they ended up buying the brand, relaunching it in its .com form, and had roughly, give or take, 20 stores spread out through America just to keep that continuity of what people really like to do: walk into a store, touch the product. Around 2013, being in the same industry, I had the opportunity to connect with this company called System X, and we were engaged to acquire the brand from them.
Got it. Okay. So bring us up then to what made you decide to do that? What made you decide to buy Circuit City? Is it still a hybrid strategy with some brick and mortar locations? Is it mostly online? Is it only online now? I guess that now bridge us from that to the present day. What is the current iteration of Circuit City, and what's the strategy going forward?
So, Andy, in my prior life, I also acquired a very large brand in its scope in consumer electronics, bankrupt brand called 47 Tree Photo. We built that brand up in e-commerce play only to being one of the top 500 e-commerce companies in the US. And within that time, I realized that what a brand can do as far as having already that enormous brand awareness in its category, in its industry. So we thought about bringing on Circuit City early on in its form of only being an e-commerce direct-to-consumer play. Something that I've done before, again, as mentioned. And I knew that throughout my learnings and some prior strategies that we executed on, and we did very well with it, we felt that we would bring that to a national brand like Circuit City. So it would be an extremely compelling offering to the public.
Got it. Okay. So
With no brick and mortar, mind you. We had no plans for brick and mortar to bring back some of that in-store type of, iteration of the brand.
got it. Okay. So Circuit City now is only online. It's an e-tailer.
It's only online right now, and we're not planning on opening up brick and mortar. So it's an e-commerce technology play only, digital play only.
Got it. And in terms of your supply chain or the products that you're retailing, are you partnering with other retailers or other distributors or wholesalers, or are you actually carrying inventory yourself? Or, are you sort of matchmaking consumers to existing supply chains, via a convenient e-commerce platform, or is it more than that, where you actually kind of own the supply chain internally?
It's a great question. I'll go a little in depth into it.
Yeah.
So Circuit City right now, over the past 5 years, we have been focused on, we have four pillars. I'll start with that. Okay. Four pillars of our business. The first one's e-commerce, direct to consumer. The second one is B2B e-commerce. The third one is powered by Circuit City, which I'll go into that. It's the newest one we're very excited about. And the fourth one is called Marketplace. And I'll go into that shortly. And each one complements each other into a platform, and I'll explain what that means as well. So right now, Circuit City Direct to Consumer, you can visit us at circuitcity.com, and you'll be able to buy brand new products from your favorite brands. So think about Samsung, Apple, LG, and so on and so forth. And when we get an order, we tend to either hold inventory only on the best products, but mostly on the balance. 90% of it is all drop ship. So we don't have to hold the inventory. We don't have to have that high velocity of carrying and worrying about the inventory. So it's definitely a new wave of being an e-commerce company, not really worrying about the logistics, the infrastructure on that end of it. We also have...
But you do carry inventory on like the best sellers or...
The best sellers.
Got it.
The products that have the highest velocity. We want to be able to position those products. Think about your PlayStations when they're really hot, coming up in Black Friday. We can't get enough of them. So we will take a position on that, and we'll have enough to service our customers that way.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's so some of the rest of the inventory, you're getting much more breadth and depth with drop shipping from, I don't know if that's distributors or whoever, direct from manufacturers.
So it's directly from the manufacturers mostly. Okay. So Samsung, we set Samsung up. I'll use Samsung as an example, big brand. We will connect to their platform. We'll connect to our platform. And as soon as we get an order in milliseconds, goes over to them, they pick and pack it within 24 hours and ship directly to the consumer. So this is the first iteration of what we did with Circuit City and direct to consumer. The next part of this play that we have in motion already is our number two pillar, which is Circuit City for Business, which we're very excited about as well. There are 32 million small businesses in America. And what we found, there's almost a white space in this area. We didn't anticipate focusing on businesses, but as small businesses shop today, really the entry point is they come to a regular e-commerce website and they look for products as anybody else, Andy. And once we identify who they are as a business, we start building that relationship up. So we build the trust, we give them the really good pricing, service is extremely important. And we built that business, so it's been consistent growth on the B2B sector year over year. So that's a second way that we transact and we interact with consumers and businesses.
I love that, by the way. I just speaking now as an investor, I love B2B. I mean,
Us too.
You have to be more patient. It's longer sales cycles, long-term relationship building. But it can just provide very stable cash flow and just, frankly, big chunks of revenue.
It is. The orders are dramatically higher on the sales side. The stickiness of that customer, once we interact with a business customer, we hold on to them. We do right by them, and they're not price shopping like a regular average consumer, and the volume is there. And we saw a study recently, I think by Forrester, that by 2025, 80% of businesses are going to transact online. It's almost at its infancy stage on the business side. Businesses, don't shop like consumers, but they do find companies like ourselves on the internet. So we're finding this model that's being, I think, through COVID. So through COVID, it really gave businesses a push online, and really for people to transact online.
Understood. Okay, so you kind of walked me through the core or original B2C strategy, and then you've added on the B2B sales, but then there were other aspects, I guess, of where you're evolving to, or the marketplace. Tell us more about those other channels that you're developing.
Absolutely. Our newest and one of our most exciting pillars, we're really excited about it. You're gonna start seeing it at the press shortly. It's called Powered by Circuit City, and it means exactly what those words are. We are powering other companies in the consumer electronic industry, and I'll give you an example. Have you ever seen Kohl's and Sephora together in store and online? And if you haven't, if you just go to Sephora, to Kohl's.com, and you click on beauty, you see this experience done properly, where you have the logo of the brand, so they're leveraging the brand, and the company, like a Sephora, compared to Circuit City, is curating the products that belong to the Kohl's customer. So that they're actually matching. You mentioned matching earlier. It's exactly what we're doing. We've just launched our first retail partnership with JCPenney. We are in 288 stores. We have an in-store footprint that it's completely self-service. So there's no lease, there's no rent. And then we're actually operating the JCPenney consumer electronic department online. So you'll find Circuit City on JCPenney with our logo there, and we're feeding them products every week in different categories that they never had before.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's basically a bolt-on solution for them to get incremental revenue without really taking on the risk of, we want to go out and ourselves build out a consumer electronics division.
And even if, a lot of these retailers in different industries, to think about hardware, think about Lowe's, Home Depot, they do sell some type of electronics. They're just not fully blown out in this category. And they, most of them are just not destinations with the brand. But we're finding over the last couple of years, there have been so much, I call it collabs between brand and brand. Toys R Us now, the new Toys R Us just launched recently, and now they're with Macy's. So if you go to Macy's, you click on toys, you see Toys R Us. So this really positions the brand into a place that's almost proprietary to us. There's not too many brands at this level that have this awareness that can actually do this. Let's keep the expertise in what we do very well, We bring exclusive products. We bring also, Andy, private label products. So we have branded Circuit City products that give us and the retailer a lot more margin on the profitability end. And you can't really shop those products. So
I'm getting Costco vibes in a really good way when you say that, Ronnie.
thank you. Thank you. So we're listen,
The Kirkland brand, right? So the Circuit City.
yes, I'm a
And
big
that
Costco fan too.
yeah. But to your point, consumers trust the Circuit City brand name. And now here's the interesting thing is psychologically speaking, it works. Like I trust the Circuit City brand name. Now, logically, I know that the current Circuit City, logistically, legally, operationally, has almost nothing to do from the Circuit City of my youth, of the year 2000 when my dad took me to the store and, bought me my first PC or whatever. But the emotional connection is still there, right? Like so
Absolutely.
it's I don't want to call it my lizard brain, but it's still that emotional connection, that trust. It's very real, and I think it's not exactly nostalgia, but just it's the value of the brand name. And I understand that sometimes these legacy companies will have too much weight, too much overhead, bad decisions, they go bankrupt. All of those, the value of the brand name still cannot outpace the cumulative bad decisions or headwinds. But nevertheless, even after a bankruptcy, the value of the brand name is just tremendous. But I do have one question, and I'm speaking really as a marketer, because that is kind of my former life, is pure marketing. I dabbled in finance, now I'm more deeply into finance. And I would say, when it comes to, let's say, Google AdWords, I'm a good AdWords guy, right? Like, to use a baseball analogy, like I could probably try out for a single A team and maybe make the team or something. But I'm not like MLB level AdWords. I'm not like a truly elite, really, expert. And I'm thinking, in this landscape, you're literally competing against Amazon. And from what I understand, you have a pretty lean team. You're a pretty small team. You're punching above your weight in terms of your team size. How are you going about building in the team that can be a small, lean team and literally have the ability to compete with Amazon and some of these other, Best Buys of the world?
It's a great question. As big as Amazon is and as big as Best Buy is, there's so much white space that we're finding. So we're looking at the opportunities where we can excel, either with certain product lines. But let's put that aside for a minute. I'll tell you one of the biggest factors. Best Buy has followed Amazon in their self-service model. And we're finding it unique, where Best Buy now, if you go to bestbuy.com, you can't even find their phone number. You can't even find a live chat unless you go to a help page. So we're finding that Best Buy is mimicking Amazon, and Amazon's completely self-service. So if you know what you're looking for, Amazon is the jack of all trades. If you know what you're looking for, it may be a good platform for you. But if you're buying a complex product, buying technology products, Andy, today is a complexity. Home automation, finding the new laptop that'll work for you. We're more bringing back experts face to face. We put our phone number right on the homepage. We actually encourage customers to contact us on the live chat. We've even
Okay, that is a differentiator. I mean, I asked you point blank, how are you competing with Amazon? You said we put our phone number on our homepage. I'm like,
yep.
wow. Okay, that's a pretty big difference between.
You'll be surprised how many people call us a day, and we do it really efficiently. And we don't time people on the phone. Once they interact with our highly trained people, our personnel that are trained by vendors, I'll give you an example. Think about your favorite headphone company. Just pick one, Sony or Skullcandy or whoever. They train our people on the product end. Why this headphone's better, why this one sounds better. So that way they're able to give the customer a solution. And our returns are extremely lower than anybody that we've seen on Amazon's end or even Best Buy. If you want to return an item on Best Buy, and not to knock them, Best Buy is a good company. So is Amazon. We just are looking for the value to help the consumer come to us, transact with us, and really feel that this is the right place where they can discover new products. And that's part of it, by the way. We're bringing some, I still like going to stores in some categories, shoes or suits or something. But if there was a way to save my time and not to go, live in the city. It's really hectic during the week. If there was a way that other categories can bring some of that physical experience online, it would make it really, really compelling for me to shop on these other platforms. And I've seen it with maybe the furniture industry. They're giving ways for people to shop where it's almost like fusing the digital and physical world together. So we're really trying to do that too. We're trying to give ways for consumers to shop almost at a realistic pace where they're able to look at the products in a different way rather than just a product on a page. Go figure it out yourself, look at reviews. We don't even know if some of the reviews are real or not, the review side now. We're finding that CNBC did an article on Amazon. A lot of their reviews, unfortunately, not real, we're finding. And they're not hard to really place. So, but I do like Amazon for other categories they're just really simple and, not to get into it, but complex products. I really feel that if customers have a place they trust and they find the right product, they'll keep on coming back to us. And that's what we're building on.
Yeah, and there's so much to unpack there, but just a couple thoughts. One is, it's interesting. This is the 2023, soon to be 2024 version of Circuit City, right? And like I said, logically, I know, in theory, legally, operationally, there's not really any link to the previous Circuit City. But what you said about the phone number and access to experts as a consumer shopper, I actually do think that's very strongly linked to that previous shopping experience that folks would have actually enjoyed in the 2000s or in the 90s or whatever. There was so much marketing around that, around how you could go to Circuit City or Best Buy or whatever, and it's like, talk to the Geek Squad or talk to the experts. And you're totally right. I mean, Amazon's entire customer service attitude is like a middle finger. Like, you just don't talk to us. Do whatever you need to do, but just do not talk to us. And a lot of human beings don't like that, right? Like,
No.
if you don't have,
There's friction, I think. There's a friction.
yeah, and it's borderline insulting sometimes when you have a problem and you can't talk to a human being, or you have a question and you can't talk to a human being. And I think from Amazon's point of view, they would say, well, we could do all that, but then prices would go up 5%. But I think a lot of consumers would happily pay 5% more for the ability to talk to a human, for the help to solve complex problems or pick a complex product, to your point. If I'm my grandma,
we tested it. I mean, it works. I'll give you another example of what we did. We did a pilot where it's called device setup support. Customer buys a complex product, like think about your TV, your smart TV, or even more so, a laptop. How do I get Office 365 set up? How do I get this connected? My router, and it gets complex. So device setup support allows customers intervals between 15 minutes, 30, and 45 minutes to do just to set up a Zoom with one of our reps. And it has worked like wildfire. I mean, we can't keep up with the demand. So we have to, tweak it up a little bit, but it is.
So I'm sorry, is that like an add-on product? Like for a fee, I can
It's a service. It's a service. So it's something that we offered customers at checkout. And it's just really clear. Device setup support via Zoom, and customers add to cart, and then it automatically gives them the calendar that they can set it up with a specific service rep. And we've tried it at a Black Friday event, and it was amazing. We actually even included that service with Ring 1 year for Black Friday as a promotion. So besides giving customers a competitive price, we actually give them the service level too, and they love it. And I have to mention something too. A lot we didn't know that we didn't have this data when we first launched. We thought that a lot of customers knew, that prior customers, legacy, knew that Circuit City went out of business. We have found an astonishing amount of users, customers that never even thought about Circuit City, never even thought that they went out of business. And I'm like, yeah, really? You don't know that they went. So I guess if you're not a consumer electronic enthusiast, or you haven't paid attention, because it was a very, very quick death with Circuit City. They went bankrupt. They got bought out within a 2 to 3 month period. And that company, Systemax, relaunched it within 2 months. They already had a platform.
Well, and Ronnie, that's the thing about bankruptcy. And I think consumers, maybe this kind of gets lost sometimes, but sometimes bankrupt companies go under, sometimes they reorganize and they continue to operate. Sometimes other companies buy their assets. So it's almost as a consumer, even if they did go into bankruptcy, I think I'd be thinking, well, I'm sure they're still around in some way, shape, or form. So it probably, but I could also see some people just don't not remembering that they would like people got a lot going on to
They do.
versus following every corporate Fortune 500 bankruptcy in the news or whatever.
Absolutely. And that's what we realized out of this. We put this first strategy session together years ago, going back on our first circuitcity.com launch for our first pillar. We started collecting data and we started seeing where the trends were and capitalizing on those trends and continuing to build from there. So one thing that we haven't spoke about was our fourth pillar. And again, it's an extremely compelling e-commerce tech play that we've learned from the best. We've learned from Amazon. We've seen what has worked in the marketplace. Back in 2017, right around this time where we were putting our strategy together, getting prepared for launching, we knew that if we didn't have a brand like Circuit City, we really wouldn't be able to compete with the Best Buy of the world, Best Buys and Amazon of the world. So pillar 4 is called Marketplace. And what that means is just as Amazon's business now consists of roughly almost 60% of their sales come from third-party sellers, which means that somebody's called John's Electronics is a seller on Amazon. Customers sometimes know, sometimes they do not know, depending if Amazon has a Prime badge on it. You may not realize.
Right. Yeah.
And it's fulfilled by the third-party seller. Amazon now, in turn, collects a revenue share from that sale. So if somebody is selling a laptop or TV for $999, Amazon will collect, and it's published, 6% of that product in revenue. And Amazon's goal is really now just to transact on that. They don't have to carry the product. They just have to have these third-party sellers. And what has happened with Amazon, their search results have gone so deep in the flooded. If you search for an HDMI cable or just something, you have 189 pages. There's just too much clutter, too much to find something now. I'm finding myself. So we're like, we have to really roll back the wheel and make it simple for customers. We have to make it more curated. We don't have to offer every single product. Amazon has so many sellers from around the world, and they all look the same. They all have these generic names on them. And we're like, this is not a great customer experience. We really, and even in the results, Amazon now puts up in their algorithm, if you search for something, any product, the first thing that comes up, and probably the first 3 to 5 results, are all sponsored ads. Are they relevant? Is it what I'm looking for? Is it the best product? I don't think so. It's whoever.
Ronnie, it kind of reminds me of Google in the sense that with their cost per click model, it was like they have, the goose with the golden egg. But then I hate to say it, they almost got too greedy. And exactly. I'm comparing the search results now to 5 years ago on Amazon or Google, to be honest with you. And I'm saying to myself, these are worse. I preferred it when there was one sponsored result at the top. And then I had, on Amazon.
Yeah,
or
for
Google.
Sure. I see it. It's becoming more about monetization and maybe less about what the relevancy is. And it just kind of just brings the customer just gets frustrated. And we're finding that, launching a dedicated, by the way, the only dedicated marketplace in the US that focuses only on consumer electronics is going to be groundbreaking. It's going to be, and it's with the brand Circuit City. So it's not
talk about the curated aspect though. So is this different? So on Amazon, any Tom, Dick, or Harry can say, I have this consumer actually I see them sometimes. There'll be TVs for like $25 or whatever on Amazon. And it's just like some brand you've never heard of. And that they might last 30 days before.
Yeah, no, we're planning on a vetting process. So it's going to be qualitative. It's going to be sellers that are not widely distributed on every single place online. and we really want to bring quality to our customers, but also there's a balance between being competitive too. So we want to bring value on the competitive side,
Mhm.
but not overflow. I think there's just a balance, Andy. It doesn't have to be a million sellers in consumer electronics and all of you just go fight. And the consumer gets the end of it sometimes where you're right. They end up seeing some irrelevancies of brands and products and honestly garbage, I
Yeah,
find.
and I have no doubt that there's a VP at Amazon or a director of this or that who runs the numbers and says, look, we make more total revenue this way. And quarter after quarter, by putting these sponsored results here or whatever, opening up our platform this widely or whatever. But to your point, it seems to me you're sitting in the consumer's shoe, as an Amazon end user, as a Circuit City end user, and they're wearing their shoes, rather wearing the consumer shoes or sitting in their seat, and you're saying like, look, you have to give them a good experience to get them to come back. Maybe Amazon is
Absolutely.
so big it just doesn't matter, but for any other company in the long run, I do think it matters. And so, you mentioned balance. That makes a lot of sense to me. The balance of value, of quality. You want some depth, but not to the point where I'm overwhelmed by.
But also, Andy, the third party sellers are the ones supporting Amazon. Being in the consumer electronic industry for over 2 decades at this point, I know, humbly speaking, I know most of the sellers, the higher tiered sellers that are in the hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, and we all know each other. We go to the same trade shows. We're friends. I'm friends with a lot of them. And I asked at point blank, I said, would you be willing to bring your brand and sell on Circuit City? They're like, yes, of course. It's just for us, we just got to connect with you. Give us another way to sell products. Give us another platform that's dedicated, and we can highlight. My pitch was, hey, we can highlight you. You don't have to be buried in search. You can prominently be placed. And what that does for Circuit City is it reduces the risk of inventory even further. It really reduces almost everything for us on the risk side of handling that. We really just have to focus on transacting and bringing traffic to our site, which we do get a healthy amount of traffic. You mentioned marketing. I've tested out the brand Circuit City versus a brand that's not known. We highly convert more than that, 2 to 3x times, just because of the brand. People do have
Right.
that. It's like a
Which
billboard.
is, by the way, how you can even compete with cost per click or AdWords. Because
Absolutely.
without that lift, if I just start andyscomputerstore.com tomorrow, how am I ever going to be able to compete with,
Yeah,
how
you said it right. I like how you're looking at it, because if Andy's computer store had a HP laptop or an Apple MacBook at the same price as Circuit City, the
Mhm.
question is, who would you rather buy from? Well,
Right.
maybe not you, Andy, but it was Andy's computer store. But if John wanted to buy a new laptop, I'd rather
Mhm.
buy from a company I know. So we don't have to be the lowest price to get people at all. That's not the play here. But we have to be. We are competitive. We have healthy margins on our products. And again, we actually bring in products and list products that meet a requirement for margin, by the way. So that's why we don't want to carry every single brand, every single TV. It's bringing in the top stuff and having services. We didn't speak about services. Having the service element besides selling product that we're highly focused on gives us that balance of margin.
It's Ronnie, it's just so fascinating, that you take a market like consumer electronics and you think that surely everything has been tried. But some of the stuff, honestly, the thing that you told me today that has blown me away the most is just having your phone number on your website. That actually, and it's
Wow.
so
Yeah.
what's old is new again. Um, but it is interesting that you're taking this brand name, you're kind of connecting it to the past, I think in some good ways. I mean that in a good way, connecting to people's trust with the brand name, maybe bringing back some things that people remember from back in the day that were good things, like being able to talk to a human being, and then not really competing head to head with Amazon. I think your phrase was finding that white space, and there is still a ton of white space, right? But you have to be
There is.
creative enough. And not every I'm usually not creative enough to find it. I can tell you're a very creative guy. So,
Well,
props to
we have
that.
a good team, Andy. We have a good team. We've assembled Navy SEALs. Our team consists of experts that have been in e-commerce, technology, consumer electronics for at least a decade plus. And we're going to continue to find the right talent. We even part of our new board of advisors, we have somebody that worked at Amazon, worked for Circuit City, Amazon, Radio Shack. So we really are finding the right people, bringing them on board to scale and help us grow and get to the next milestones of where we need to go. So there's just so much to do, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I want to be respectful of your time. So I know we're almost out of time, but I know I have one more question, which is just obviously you all are growing quickly, and what's your vision in terms of how big can this get? Could this Circuit City be as big or bigger than the old Circuit City? Are you thinking of building this towards an IPO, or like what's the big 10-year rock kind of big picture dream here?
If you can think about where Amazon was from any other e-commerce or retailer out there over the last 25 years, can we envision or have that foresight that Amazon's now worth 1.4 trillion on the open market? I wouldn't put a cap on Circuit City. I think Circuit City, we are planning, Andy, part of our execution plan to one of our ways to exit for a liquidity event would be an IPO. And I think not putting a cap on it is the way to go. The time over the last COVID has accelerated e-commerce so dramatically far that it's definitely set us to grow and accelerate faster than we thought about. And I do think that Circuit City can be in the billions of dollars in valuation down the road. And just because of what we're doing, we're doing things differently. We're not capped out by the amount of stores we're opening. We're a digital company, digital first, and pushing out all our 4 pillars will allow us to just expand and grow in ways that Circuit City never could have before because of technology. It has helped us now really find ways to bring the brand out to so many different places. So if I'll give you an example really quick to end with this. If a customer's on Lowe's.com and we are placed with Lowe's or JCPenney and they find our products there, we've never have dreamed to think about that way to transact. So these are innovative ways to expand the brand and offering where the customers. So we want to be where the customers are, either in Google, either on our website, or with another, really qualitative company out there. And I think that, consumer electronics now is really ripe for disruption. I really think that all the years that we've been doing this, it's such a great time. We live and breathe technology. We're all connected to our phones and our devices. We can't live without them. So it's really a great space to be in. And specifically being in technology, we've seen the most enormous growth as far as us being, entrepreneurs and operators. It's really, we see the most, I'd say, return, if you could think about a different type of investment. This is why I'm in this business. I love it. And I'll end there, but it's been so good. I mean, you asked so many good questions, and so I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, Ronny, it's my pleasure. And like I said, this strategy, this vision, it really excites me. Obviously, to plug for our audience, if you want to visit Circuit City to buy a computer or a consumer, electronics gadget, circuitcity.com. But Ronny, is there anywhere where our audience of private equity professionals and investors can go to learn more about the private equity side of your strategy or that side of it?
Absolutely. We just recently launched our Series A funding round. And if somebody would like to see all the information, we have a site called invest.circuitcity.com.
Got it. And that link will obviously be in our show notes, which as always are available on wealthchannel.com. Ronny, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.